Welcome back, everybody. So by the time you're watching this, I should be on a short week-long work trip. I have already finished all of the work that this video is going to cover. I hope you enjoy it. As I mentioned in the video that's releasing this morning, I'm quickly getting to a point where I think work's going to stop. I hope I'm wrong. I haven't looked far enough ahead to figure it out. But we are going to get to the point where I need to start buying some more expensive bits, and that's going to take me a little while. So the videos may spread out a little more as we wait for components to show up and for me to get them installed and start running systems. But what's going to happen in this one, what you're going to see, and I didn't cover as much of it as I would have liked to. Part of it was because it was impromptu. I didn't think I was going to do it until I started doing it. I got the fuel selector valve installed in the plane. I have the panel that it goes in all mocked up. It is now Cerakoted, finished. I'm going to throw pictures of everything up. There'll be a lot of pictures in this video. I will throw pictures up showing the progress of that and what it looks like now. I'll even take this camera over there in a minute so you can get a sneak preview of what the final product looks like. Also, after lots of scouring on the internet, some phone calls, some expert advice, I decided that I really did want and like the idea of having a access panel in the side of the skin to that fuel pump. While I could probably stand on my head now and crawl under that instrument panel to get to it and the filter and all that other stuff later on if I have to, I don't know that I'll be able to do that 10 years from now. So having the panel that I can just take off during every annual or every time I need to do maintenance seemed like a good idea to me. There's lots of different designs out there that different people have come up with over the years. They're all really great. What I chose to do was, let me grab the panel itself. I had those wing inspection panels that I screwed up way back when. Here's one of them. On the wing, these holes are supposed to be number 6. These are number 8. I accidentally drilled all of these for number 8s. So I have 3 of these that I screwed up. So I bought 3 new ones, which are now on the wing. But I have these laying around. I decided to take one of these and make it the access panel for the fuel pump. And what we ended up with is this. All I did to get the extra rounded edge was I flipped one of these over as a template, traced the rounded side on both sides, so we have a nice rounded access panel. It's already been drilled. I just had to add 2 extra holes on the rounded side that I put in. And then I took a scrap piece of this 040 that I've got, this sheet right here, and I cut a doubler out of it. And that is all on video, so you will see that. Cut a doubler out, and you can see it is now mounted to the skin. This has already been on the plane. It has already been test fitted, and it fits super, super nice. I may need to do a little trimming on the panel still because it fits so nice right now that it probably will not fit later on with some paint, or it'll be a tight fit. So I will probably have to trim this just a little bit to make that work out. Anyhow, super happy with how it came out. It's extremely strong where it's at. It is between the auxiliary longeron and the shelf bracket and skin doubler that's up there, and then that 041 seems to stiffen the skin up nicely. Somebody that had done this on Vans Air Force mentioned having to put an angle in there because their skin bowed out when they cut it. Mine is perfectly fine. I also put it on the plane, then clecoed the ring in place and started riveting it on the plane. That way any curve that was there was held by the ring when I riveted it down. I didn't want to do it on a flat surface and have it end up not as curved as it should be, if that makes sense. There is a brace behind the corner angle brace that's on the firewall does partially cover the very bottom corner of that access panel. That's just because of where it had to be located. I shortened one of the nut plates, and I've got a set of shorter screws on order for that one corner. I don't know if you can see that, but shortened it down so that at no point does any part of the nut plate or the screw touch that brace. But that's it. It was a lot easier than I thought. It was a lot scarier than I thought. It's never fun cutting holes in the plane that the plans don't call for. And yes, Vans is okay with this idea. In fact, I think I read somewhere that there was an employee at Vans that was currently adding this mod to his plane. So anyhow, that's it for this video. The rest of the plumbing is done for the fuel selector, the fuel pumps. I haven't 100% committed to leaving my own homemade fuel lines in there or not. I'm still not perfectly happy with it, at least the feed line. I may swap that out for a TS Flight Lines line later on, but now I have access to the pump, so I can change those lines anytime, and it's not going to be difficult at all. Speaking of which, the brake line kit I ordered should be here the middle of this week, probably about the time you're watching this video, while I'm still gone. So when I get back, that's going to be the plan, is get those installed and then get the skins on the plane like they're supposed to be, get some guest help out here, and we'll get this thing riveted up and onward to whatever is next. I did promise you that sneak peek up front, so let's walk over here real quick and look down. There's the fuel valve. There you go. And it works nice. You can see it is embedded in this panel. I cut a hole out of it so it sits around it. That's just because this bezel has to be mounted to whatever the valve is mounted to. If it gets too thick, this knob gets hard to turn. So I just used the fly cutter and made it countersunk in there, and it came out really, really nice. Now, that being said, you know the routine. Like, subscribe, follow, listen to whatever voiceover Tim has to tell you about how this actually went down. And I will see you all on the next one. All right, so this was actually a couple of days ago. I had this footage when the last video came out, but I wanted to save it all together to compile it with the access panel because I figured it all kind of mattered. So this is the fuel selector valve. That's the bracket I made for it originally, and then that square plate you see that I mounted on top of it is just there to provide support because I used the fly cutter to cut that big hole to recess the valve in it. There's a gap between that plate and the bracket, the thickness of those angles it's mounted on. So it has a lot of flex and give, and I didn't want that in there. I wanted it to be nice and secure around the valve, so I made that big doubler plate basically, and you see me marking out there now, and I'm drilling holes for where I'm going to mount nut plates in it to help suck that cover plate down around it. So in addition to being mounted around the edges like it normally is for the cover plate, it's also going to be secured around that valve with some countersunk number 8s. Another thing to point out, that cover plate, as it comes from Vans, is perfectly flat. If you look closely in some of these videos, you'll notice I've put a slight bend in the aft edge of it. I also put another bend in the edge that goes over the longeron because those 2 points angle away from the flat plane of that plate. And it really didn't sit right on there, and if you put screws in it, I feel like it would just kind of bend the plate over and look distorted. So I put nice clean bends in it. It lays really nice in there now. I'll probably do the same thing on the other side. Speaking of the other cover plate, it was sitting there when I did the intro and I forgot to mention it, but I have bought a cup holder that I'm going to countersink in the other cover plate, and that's where I will keep my water or coffee or whatever while I'm flying this airplane, because cup holder seems important to me. So that's all done up. It has nut plates in it now, and I'm just getting it mocked up again. A lot of this process, both for this and the access panel, is just a lot of mocking it up, trying it, making tweaks, taking it apart, doing it again. But it was a lot of fun seeing stuff like this come together. So real quick, here's the fuel return line, because I don't think I showed that before. You can see it right there passing in front of the fuel pump, and that's going to come from the firewall and go back to the valve, and that's all plumbed into that valve now. Obviously there's 4 ports on the back side of that valve that need lines run to them. The fittings are showing up for that today, so I'll probably get those put in there, but then the lines have to get made at a later time. And once again, I may go with TS flight lines for that. It's going to be super expensive, but I do know they make quality stuff. So on to the access panel. I already explained how I got the extra rounded edges on that panel. The holes are easy to transfer the same way. So what I'm doing now is laying it out on a piece of 040, and I'd already marked those 2 straight edges for what I wanted for edge distance for the rivets, traced out where the actual panel is, and now I'm transferring the lines to make a flange all the way around for the rivet row. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the inside, the same depth. I'm going to make another line, and that's going to be the actual flange that the cover plate mounts to. So I have 3 lines when it's done. The line that represents the plate, the inside line that's a cut line, and the outside line that's a cut line. Getting out the air nibbler is the quickest, easiest way I've found to cut through the aluminum. The downside to using the air nibbler is it's really hard to be precise. Like, you wouldn't want to cut right up to the line, because the way the nibbler works is it takes hundreds and hundreds of little round nibbles out of what it's cutting. And as such, it doesn't cut straight on the middle. It has a very thick kerf. So you have to take into account where that's going to end up. A little practice, you can get pretty good with it, but not something you would ever really want to cut to the line to. So I'm getting it close to the line, and then I'm filing and sanding to get it down to the line that I want it. Since I have that middle line that shows where the cover plate goes, it makes it real easy to line it back up each and every time, precisely where it's going to go. So now here's the problem with my trim ring. You can see it's either going to hit the longeron and or it's going to hit the NACA vent where I want to put it. So that means I have to modify it just a little bit. I'll take the spare NACA vent I've got, trace the profile, and then I'll cut a little notch in it for that. And now it's just ever so slightly going to interfere with the longeron, so we're going to take a little off for that. By taking a little off of both sides, I mitigated how much I would have to affect the actual rivet line. In the end, the dip in the low part by the NACA vent, there should be a rivet in the middle that I wasn't able to put in because of edge distance, so I made up for it by putting an extra rivet on either side of the curve as close inward as I could get it, if that makes any sense. So again, using the line that I originally traced where the panel goes, I got it clamped in place, and I'm drilling for all of those number 8 screws now. And that'll give me a good solid way to get this thing locked to the trim ring each and every time I have to do something else with it. And now we're getting to the scary part, the committing to cutting holes in this all prepped, ready to go wing skin. I've got the rivet fan. I'm going to go lay out a nice row of rivets all the way around it. And then when it comes time here in a second, you're going to see me stare at it for a moment as I contemplate, do I really want to drill this first hole? Once I drill that first hole, it's game on, because I'm committed to cutting this hole at this point. But stop, contemplate, think about life choices, and then go ahead and do it. And I don't know if I pointed it out, but I already had a circle drawn on the skin where the opening was going to be, and that was based on using the square to make sure that it was straight to the panel. It's kind of hard to pick straight since, you know, the plane's a tail dragger. It's going to sit at an angle. The row of rivets below it on the longeron is angled. The neck event's anything but straight. So the front straight edge of the wing skin is what I went off of for this. The whole idea behind all of this was to try and give it a factory look, as if Vans themselves had decided that you should have an access panel there to reach your rudder pedals, your brakes, and or the fuel pump. Yes, you can get to all of that stuff by pulling the baggage floor out, but you're still climbing up through the baggage compartment door and down into the plane to get to it. So here you see the nibbler again. I really contemplated whether I wanted to use this on the actual wing skin, but it is the easiest way to get that done without causing a lot of excess carnage. Just got to be careful. Like I said, don't want to get right up to that line. Also, don't want to lose control of it and go too far one way and take a little nibble out you didn't mean to take. And then cleaning it up to the line, the quickest, easiest way I found was just this drum sander on the drill and lots of files. So this is just going to be a whole lot of fitting, filing, and right now I'm just going to the line that I made. And that line is the actual edge of the cover plate. So I really need to go beyond it so that the cover plate sits down in there nicely. And I still may need to clean up the plate a little bit, because right now it sits really, really well, but I may have some edge distance issues later on when everything's painted. I don't think I will, but we'll see. I cut a lot of this out. This was probably a solid hour and a half of sanding and filing and tweaking to get this where I wanted it to be. And here at the very end of this video, in just a few minutes, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of pictures up that shows this thing on the plane, off the plane, pictures of the return line for the fuel pump again, as well as the fuel selector valve in its final state. So stick around for that. Using the number 8 nut plate jig tool that I got from the yard store, makes quick work of locating and installing all of those nut plate holes. Get everything dimpled. And we are in the home stretch. Now you might also notice that I regularly set that squeezer down on the floor. Part of the reason for that is, one other drawback to that is the hydraulic line to that is kind of heavy. So if you don't get it set on the bench just right, it can drag itself off. I've had it pull itself kind of off the bench and onto the floor on its own a few times. So sometimes if I don't have a good place to set it, you'll see I'll just set it on the floor because it's easier if I set it there versus it falling there. Anyhow, nut plates are installed. I had to dimple all of those as well, which is kind of weird. The nut plates that Vans supplies in the kit that are dimpled for a number 8 countersunk screw do not have dimples for the rivets themselves. It seems like a weird place to save money when you know full well you're going to need a dimpled rivet holding a countersunk nut plate. I'm not sure what scenario you would ever have where you don't, but anyhow, you have to dimple them. So there you see me screwing it in and giving it a try for the first time, and I was marking the high spots because, again, more tweaking. So the ring comes back out, and back to doing some more sanding and tweaking. Let's clean it up with the deburr wheel there, get it back in, and try it again. And I think I was pretty happy with it on this go. I do have some shorter screws on order. Those are 8R8s right now. But I've got some 3/8 long screws on order that are going to go in that to clear where it sits in front of that angle, which I found out just how close it was after I got it on the plane the first time. But there you can see it. I'm going to slow this down so you get a little look at the access it gives. It's really nice. Plenty of room to get both hands in there and work on things. And then we'll swing around, look at it from this side. Anyhow, here's all the pictures I promised at the end, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you stuck around to the end, I appreciate it. Like, comment, it all helps the channel out. As I said, me and Chris spoke recently. I think we're going to bring the podcast back here soon, so stay tuned and look forward to that. And as soon as I get back from this trip, hopefully we'll be back to installing some brake lines and possibly riveting some skins on. So really appreciate all of the support, and I will see you all on the next one.